But come on, man, I can't believe you of all people would think this was a side quest episode when we meet back up with Rex, we meet back up with Wolffe and Hauser. We had all these reunions. Not enough clones for you? Too many clones?
Both. Not enough and too many, actually.
Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan.
Welcome, everyone, to Krypton to Alderaan. I am Joey, your Star Wars lover, and with me is Royish Goodlooks.
Hello, podcast. Hello, Joey.
Hello, and we're the podcast that analyzes nerdy pop culture stuff, but guess what? It's mostly Star Wars. And guess what else? This episode we're talking about, guess what? The Bad Batch Season 3, Episodes 6 and 7, Infiltration and Extraction. Royce, did you know we were getting 2 episodes this week?
Had no idea until I logged onto YouTube and it was like a dual episode review by Star Wars Explained. Like, whoa, there's 2 this week?
Yeah.
I knew that they had that in the schedule somewhere, but no, this was a surprise to me, or as you texted, a surprise to be sure, but a welcomed one. Yeah, I totally forgot, but this was awesome. And it was a 2-part.
Yeah.
It wasn't just 2 randos. It was a cliffhanger 2-part episode.
That's right. It wasn't just 2 randos like us, and we will be talking all about it upcoming. But first, wow, did we get an amazing bump in subscribers after our last episode. It was incredible to watch. The numbers went up like every day. We would love to see that momentum continue. We are so close to 500 subscribers, which is the next step of leveling up Krypton to Alderaan on YouTube. I should say this is all for YouTube. 500 subscribers, super close. Can't wait to get there. Thank you for everyone who subscribed, who has been subscribed, who's newly subscribed. Let's keep this momentum going. We're at like 432 at the time of this recording. So we're so close. It's so amazing to see. Please subscribe, tell your friends. Let's go. And we'll all ride off into the sunset together like I hope the Bad Batch does at some point. What do you think about that?
I hope so too.
Okay, that's all. That's all of that. That's all the housekeeping. Royce, punch it. Okay, Royce. So I'm going to come in hot and say right off the bat, these 2 episodes felt more side questy to me than the previous episode that other people were saying was side questy. So what do you think about that?
Well, so I love that you phrased that in comparison to last week. So at least comparing it against something, I can maybe accept that as being a little bit more fair. But come on, man, you waving the flag of Star Wars animation. Have you seen the Clone Wars? Hey, what's the deal with all these? What happens to the clones in the original trilogy?
Yeah.
Watch the Clone Wars. Get a t-shirt with that printed on it, please. Trademark that.
We're going to make Krypton to Alderaan merch that just says, watch the Clone Wars.
I can't believe you of all people would think this was a side quest episode when we meet back up with Rex. We meet back up with Wolffe, who I forgot how he was connected, but he's connected in the canon. And
sure is.
Hauser, Hauser, calling back to our...
Hauser.
I think he showed up last season, right? Briefly.
I thought we only saw him in season 1. Maybe we saw him in season 2. Anyway.
We didn't podcast about season 1 as far as I remember. But anyway, we had all these reunions with old clones and old clone assassins. Man, as a fan of the clones in general, Joey, I'm a little bit surprised. I see the filler episode side quest moniker as maybe a negative. I don't know if maybe that's how you mean to describe it, but I'm still surprised. Not enough clones for you? Too many clones?
Both. Not enough and too many, actually. No, I mean, I'm just saying that to get people riled up. Obviously, I really love the clones. Obviously, I've said a million times that I want to see this clone rebellion and stuff. I think maybe because it was a 2-parter, it felt like there was more atmosphere overall. Like there was a lot more space and a lot more time taken than last episode, which was just like a distilled Crosshair's redemption in 20 minutes.
Well, so it's interesting that you're like, they slowed down and it was a 2-parter, because occasionally with the live action shows, we get a 30-minute episode. We get an hour-long episode. So this was maybe less of a 2-part, 2-episode. It really was one 40-minute episode sort of thing, which is not uncommon for the other series we've had on Disney Plus so far. So maybe that's a better way to look at it, is it's not 2 side quest episodes back to back. this is just one story kind of drawn out. But man, I don't think this is side quest at all, man. I will push back for the good of Star Wars animation fans. I'm so here for all of this clone stuff, whether or not you think it's side or not. Rex has a great line where he says, I don't really want to bring Hunter and all of them into this. We're doing our own thing. And it's like, dude, but the show, this is the Bad Batch show. We've said multiple times, like, I'd be all here.
What if Hauser just said that to Rex in that moment? But this show is called The Bad Batch, sir.
Is this another Jurassic Park callback here? You are going to have the Bad Batch in your Bad Batch show here. But so he immediately says, like, let's not call Hunter. And I was like, damn, if they don't call Hunter in, then yes, I might agree that this would be a little bit of the more classic side quest, that we don't involve a main character and we just bring in the Shadow Assassins and not Hemlock, not Palpatine, and not the original Bad Batch crew. I'd be on board. But the first thing we do, we don't even see them call Hunter. They're already in hyperspace on the way over. I loved that connection, that we don't need to beat around the bush. We're going to get the gang together. And they land on their secret base there. Do we know what planet that is?
Oh, good question. Teth.
I'm not familiar with it, but that's interesting. Teth. When they do finally meet up, Rex explains, like, my numbers are growing. It seems like they're building this offensive when they're when they're interrogating the Shadow Assassin. He says, we know about Tantus. We know about Hemlock. This is great that they're like, we're not just a bunch of, they call them rogue clones later on, which I thought is kind of interesting. Like, rogue is a cool Star Wars term that's been thrown around, like rogue clones. That's the Bad Batch. This is its own, subtitle of the series here. I love that part of this. I'm so here for Rex's Rebellion. That's the show right there. Rex's Rebellion, rogue clones. Dude, I'm still worried for how all of this shakes up, because now we've got like other clone discourse within the Empire. We've got Rex's Rebellion. We've got the Bad Batch. We've got these assassins. There's so many things culminating, and I'm really concerned that it's still not all going to shake up with the most happy of endings. But I'm rooting for my clone brothers. Until then, I'm here for it.
I love that, and I love the Clone Rebellion. There's no pretty ending here, right? We see the clones again in Star Wars Rebels. Obviously, this Clone Rebellion does not succeed. There are 3 clones in Star Wars Rebels. We know that Rex fought in the Battle of Endor. So nothing much happens here. I mean, maybe they might make a blow to Project Necromancer at some point. I have a theory that I discussed with someone in the comments of our last episode here on YouTube. Hit subscribe, comment. We'd love to hear what you thought of this episode.
Smooth.
But I was having a discussion with someone in the comments about, like, does Vader show up and destroy Project Necromancer because he doesn't like that idea? And I think that Project Necromancer is going to get dealt a blow here, which is why we don't see it picked back up until Mando. So either something happens, either they make, like, the clones make a attack on Tantus and disrupt it, or Saw shows up. Every time they need to blow something up, they throw Saw Gerrera in there. Maybe the Clone Rebellion will make a little bit of headway, but we know that it doesn't get anywhere. So there is going to be a very sad ending.
Hey, I mean, not for nothing, they blow up the Death Star and they're still on the run in the next movie. So, we've seen this before play out within Star Wars, that even what seems like a pretty awesome victory is just the beginning, of a larger war, right? You're taking your first steps into a larger war.
And we have another rebellion starting in this first episode, with Senator Chuchi and Senator Singh coming together and discussing some kind of rebellion against the Empire. And they're having this, like, heated political discussion at the table. So we're even seeing, like, what's going to happen there. We know that they, like, also don't make any headway, but we also don't, as far as I know, we also don't see them again. Maybe they're in books that I haven't read. Does Bail Organa pick up the rebellion from them when they are taken out or taken down, or something happens to them?
Yeah, Singh says, we have no unified leader. Like, they're waiting for a Mon Mothma. They're waiting for a Bail Organa. I was just rewatching Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith the other day, and Bail is at the end of the Clone Wars, or Attack of the Clones, watching all the clones go to war, right? And he's like, this is not good. And then at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and he's watching the young Jedi Padawan try to defend him, and he's like, no! And he flies
George
off.
Lucas's son.
Yeah. So Bail, he knows all the turmoil that's going on. He obviously doesn't agree with it, but we're waiting for one of those leaders to rise to power. And we know they eventually do, rally the troops. I wasn't really on board with those 2 senators at first. That could have went way, in a way boring, let's do just a political episode, which could have been great, but yes, different than what was coming previous in this season. They were pretty clean off of that. And I really love the line from Senator Singh. He says, I would do anything for my people, for Raxus. And that is another theme that's just echoed throughout the Bad Batch of, I'm going back for my brothers. We have to do this for each other. We owe it to them. That was an interesting way to kick off this two-parter that you might think like, oh, who are these senators? I don't even remember these people. What season are they from? Did I not read the book that these people are in? But that right there, I'd do anything for my people, right? And he gave up everything. He's in hiding. He's worried that he's going to be found wherever he is, but he's still in the fight and he's hoping for some leadership to show up. He's hoping for a new hope. Man, I love this. Joey, side quest, what are you talking about, dude?
Well, I'm glad you're so amped up about it. I also, you're getting me more amped up about it. I love the journey that we're seeing and the clone rebellion that we're seeing come together. So on the opposite side of everything we're just discussing is Wolffe. You mentioned Wolffe. And the idea here that there are still clones loyal to the Empire, there's still some amount of like secretive and propaganda that's happening to the clones that are still loyal to the Empire, to where they don't really know who they're fighting or what's going on. In the first season of the Bad Batch, after Order 66, when Tarkin is testing the Bad Batch, the first mission he sends them on, he says there are insurgents in the jungle, go and fight them. And the Bad Batch shows up and they're like, these are just people. They're not insurgents. And the same exact thing happened here in this episode where Wolffe shows up and he's like, they're clones. They're not insurgents. And I think the assassin says they're both or something like that. So we're still at this stage, however many years in we are here, where the clones loyal to the Empire are still loyal under these falsehoods and this propaganda, which was very surprising to me. That A, the Empire hasn't completely transitioned into just the conscription soldiers that don't really care what the orders are. It's not about right and wrong with the conscription soldiers, but it is about right and wrong with the clones, which is why they need to feed them false information. I was just surprised by that. And it was great to see Wolffe. And I also think it gives a little bit more backstory and understanding to, so we see Wolffe again in Star Wars Rebels when there are only 3 clones. We only ever see 3 clones. And Wolffe is with Rex on some deserted planet. Kanan and Ezra show up and Wolffe is the one that contacts the Empire and says, hey, there's a Jedi here. And everyone's like, what did you do? And Kanan doesn't trust the clones at that point. He's validated in feeling that way because of Wolffe. But I thought this was a great way to be like, oh, Wolffe is still kind of more soldier than brother here, I think. So it made that part in Rebels make a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed that you're bringing this up. The continuity there makes sense. But I was wondering at the end of Extraction that, are they going to convince all those clones to defect and join up and like, yes, I would love that. The kind of Game of Thrones, like, let's amass our armies here, because Rex had just lost some soldiers in that fight. So it would be great to replenish your numbers with Wolffe, because they seem like they had the history there. Wolffe lets him go, but he still goes back to the Empire, and he's still he's not on board even in Rebels. So that makes me wonder, I thought he was going to help from the inside later on, that we were chipping away there at the ice. And maybe in a future episode, in a future mission, Wolffe and his squad could further help the Bad Batch or Rex's rebellion. But you're making me think that that won't be the case. Maybe that's part of why it's not going to be as successful as we would like it to be.
I mean, he regrets what he does in Rebels, but 100% I think after this mission, Wolffe is captured and is going to be part of the clones that they liberate on Tantus. Like Scorch or somebody is going to rat him out to the Empire. There's also something here with the commandos. From what I'm seeing, the commandos seem to have gone through some kind of like reconditioning or re-education as well, like with the assassins. They do not question any of this. I'm pretty sure it's Scorch with Wolffe at the end, and Scorch is like, but they're the bad guys, whatever. I'm reducing his dialogue. And Wolffe is like, perhaps, but they're also our brothers. So we're getting a little bit more of that brother stuff there. I think the reason why he joins the Clone Rebellion is because he's part of who gets liberated when they finally show up to Tantus. Something I think we've touched upon here a little bit is like these different degrees of loyalty. Singh being loyal to Raxus. He wants to do what's best for his people. He would do anything for them. Wolffe being loyal to the Empire because he's a soldier and he believes what he's doing is right. And Crosshair, the conversation between Hauser and Crosshair. The conversation about loyalty is eventually what convinces Hauser that Crosshair is redeemed. From certain point of views, loyalty means different things, and there's like 3 points of view in this episode that are talking about loyalty. So a really interesting storytelling there.
No, I totally agree with you. The Crosshair side of the story is one of the more compelling parts about it because we already know the clones are brothers and they're there for each other. We already know the Bad Batch is there for each other. But Crosshair is a relatively new addition to the crew. It's a little bit of a sidestep, but I've been trying to notice the orchestration when Crosshair shows up because he used to have this like blah, super, fuzzy, evil synthesizer sound. This episode started off with some like similar tones, but they weren't as like growly, and it wasn't about Crosshair at all. I thought the assassin that we first saw was going to end up being maybe Crosshair or a flashback or something. But I'm having a hard time picking up any like what his new theme is now that he's on this path toward redemption. Yeah, his loyalty throughout this is a huge part of it as well, because immediately Hauser is not on board with him. But then we do a great 180 by the end of the episode that he's kind of the reason they're able to escape the Spire, because he's fighting with the assassin, which is also kind of cool that it was like assassin v assassin. We always make fun of like Wolverine fighting like Wolverine clone, or Iron Man fighting another Iron Man, whatever. The main character fighting the exact bizarro version of themselves. I kind of got that vibe with Crosshair in the assassin, but he's the reason that they're able to escape. Eventually, when he falls off when he's in the water, being drowned by the assassin, they stun the assassin. The assassin and Crosshair go floating down the river, and Crosshair's barely hanging on. I couldn't catch who it was because the episode was so dark, and I was watching it in my living room, and the sun was too bright, so I could barely tell what the heck was going on in the scene. But you had confirmed earlier, so that's Hauser that pulls him up out of the water, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, right there, like thematically, Hauser just saved the guy who he was like, you killed all my friends.
Yeah. First of all, I really like what you said about Crosshair's new theme, and maybe we're going to get a full-fledged new Crosshair theme at the end when Crosshair inevitably, like, whatever the end of this is for Crosshair, maybe we'll get his new theme then. I also, because of you, I want you to know, I've been, like, picking up on these themes as well. And throughout this episode, they were, like, remixing the clone theme. But they were, like, they've been remixing it, which I think is leading us through this new journey for the clones, like taking us out of being a soldier for the Republic and into this clone rebellion, which I really enjoy. And we have been talking since the beginning of this season about how in season 1, by the end of season 1, I wanted Crosshair to stay the villain. I did not want any redemption arc for Crosshair. I just wanted a villain. And we have this season been talking about how, against all odds, they have turned me around. This episode, I'm going to get into more lines of evidence of how they turned me around. And in fact, I now feel a fair amount of love for this man. But that Hauser in this episode was a representation of that, I think, from the audience. Because the last time we saw Hauser...
Last time you had a gun, you murdered someone.
yeah, it's very that.
Shout out Lost.
Our one Lost reference per episode. Anyway, Hauser representing the audience there, saying, your squad trusts you, but I don't believe in your redemption. And then by the end, Hauser coming around and saving Crosshair. That whole sequence, I was so afraid. They've taken me from like, okay, this guy's a villain. I'm kind of glad his face got melted off when he tried to kill the Bad Batch by turning on that Republic ship, to, man, please don't let him die right now. He's making this sacrifice too soon. I don't want to see him go. And Hauser saves him, which again, like representing me as the audience in a character in the show, which I really, really enjoy. So I really like that journey. There's so much more of a connection to Crosshair's redemption, which with having like an avatar of the audience in the show. I think that's a really smart way to do that. And it has to be purposeful.
I think he deserves, after all of this kind of development we've seen over the last few episodes, breaking out with Omega, like working with Omega, linking back up with the Batch, duking it out with Hunter on the Outpost, duking it out with Hauser on whatever this planet was called.
Teth.
Duking it out with Hauser on Teth. That we'll probably get a couple more of these moments, but whatever happens with him then will be deserved. If it is the sacrifice We were talking before we started recording. Is he going to have the Paz Vizsla moment of like shutting the door? You guys go on without me. Taking one for the team. So we obviously don't know. We're speculating on that, but I think it will be deserved by that point, rather than if he had gotten captured in this episode and we're like, oh, we're going to retread this ground. Or if he just bit the bullet in this one and they're just like, oh my God, no, we lost Crosshair. Although they lost a bunch of other clones in this episode and nobody really got their flowers in this. But was interesting that at the end, Wolffe said, we're going to collect all the traitors because they still deserve it, even if they're traitors. That was a really interesting, nuanced, like very complex character development there for the clones. I got to go back and watch the Clone Wars because it must be even cooler.
You really do.
If you're a true Clone Wars fan. So I'm with you here with this Crosshair redemption. I already believe in him in these last couple episodes because I've just been forward looking, like this is where we're going. But like you said, to live through Hauser, and now you're like, okay, now you're earning the trust. Because that was really the main issue when Crosshair shows up in this episode with Rex's crew, is they're like, we don't know if you're still working with them. How come you're not brainwashed? How come you don't have a chip? How come you have all this information? And he says, that's the truth, even if you don't believe me. So how do you feel, though? You're on board with Crosshair Redemption. How are you feeling about his reluctant fatherhood expanding in this episode with Omega?
Oof. Yeah. Crosshair, the less reluctant father. Those moments, I don't know how to articulate how great I thought these moments were of the interactions between Crosshair and Omega in this episode. Like him being very fatherly or familial with her and him being like, are you doing okay? Can you carry that much in your pack? That kind of thing over and over again throughout the episode happened between the two of them, to the point where once Omega says, one of my favorite lines of the episode was, this episode was chock full of great lines. One of my favorite lines of the episode is Omega at some point to Crosshair says, you're as bad as Hunter. And Crosshair goes, oh, I'm much worse. I love that line. And it's so Crosshair in that it's like very kind of ominous and evil sounding, but he means it in like yeah, I'm going to nurture the F out of you. I'm going to, if Hunter was going to take one thing out of your pack to make it lighter, I'm going to take two things out of your pack to make it lighter. You know, like I'm much worse than Hunter. Yeah, I think there's just something real great there. And their relationship, again, evolving from the first couple of episodes where we were talking about their dynamic being very intriguing, but very like sassy, and him being the grump while she's the optimist, to transitioning into this very familial, caring, loving dynamic.
There's love there, but it's interesting that it's a pretty tough Crosshair type of love. It's not, oh, sweetie, is that too much for you? You know, did you make sure to pack a lunch? No, he's like, do you got your gun? Is your gun loaded? What about your
do you
pack?
have your crossbow? Yeah.
It has this sort of almost overbearing nature to it, which is perfect that she's like, wow, you're as bad as Hunter. And then down the line in the episode, Hunter says something to Crosshair of like, you know, I see how you're treating her and I approve, which is kind of funny.
I don't remember that bit, but I love that.
I don't remember the exact line there, but he indicates that he was watching Crosshair, you know, taking care of Omega.
I think that was Hauser. There's a scene with Hauser where Hauser says, I see the way you are with the kid.
Huh. Okay, maybe I am misremembering that.
Yeah, I think that's the same part where Hauser's like, what changed? And then Crosshair talks about loyalty meaning something to him and not to the Empire. And so that being a part of the reason why Crosshair betrayed the Empire and they betrayed him, kind of thing.
It's definitely within that same scene. I'll have to go back and watch, you know, fact check us in the comments if you're listening. I was hoping that was Hunter, though, that he was having that conversation with, because in the last episode, that was kind of the thing of like, you're jealous that I'm friends with her and you're not.
Yeah.
But now they're like, okay, actually, I get it. We are serving the same role as her older brother, as her parental figure. We're on the same team here.
It's interesting you're calling it like more tough and gruff. I'm reading it as very loving, even though his language is...
It was just the tone. The tone was not smooth.
Yeah. He's like, do you have everything? Do you have your crossbow? Is your pack too heavy? That kind of thing, but he's saying it in his own way. But I think like my read of it was extremely loving, and also like from his perspective, trying to keep her at arm's length, because he's going to do stuff like distract the assassin or the shadow trooper so that the rest of them can get away. He wants to be close to her. He feels very close to her, but he feels like he needs to keep her at a distance so that when he's making these sacrifices, it's a little bit easier on her if he doesn't come back. That's the vibe I'm getting. I do not expect Crosshair to make it past the end of the season. I am already preparing to be sad about this, and I think that that's kind of what the character is doing for Omega and for all of us, is preparing us for how sad we will be when he doesn't make it. You know, another moment is when he goes after the Shadow Trooper by himself. So let's back up a little bit, because there's a couple of things here where I'm saying I don't expect Crosshair to make it through the end of the season. And I think that could go a couple of different ways. Speculation that I made on one of our previous episodes was, is it possible that the Bad Batch is not safe from him yet? You know, we know that he's gone through this like reconditioning and re-education. Is there the potential for him to be another sleeper agent, Order 66 style? Something in this episode I felt gave my theory there a little bit of credit, which is that the assassin trooper that they capture recognizes him and calls him brother, and then tells, you know, Rex and Hauser, if you have questions, why aren't you asking him? Right? But the assassin trooper looks at him, and Crosshair looks back and is like, we got to get out of here now. And then the trooper calls him brother.
You're scaring me, Joey, because I'm on board with redemption. And like, obviously, Order 66, every clone was sort of a sleeper agent. Who would think like they would all turn? But of course, Cody immediately turns on Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith. And you're like, oh, that was pretty abrupt there. You guys were just hanging out a minute ago. And so I guess that could potentially happen with Crosshair. And I was wondering why, when they enter that little interrogation room, right before that, Crosshair had already said they have these assassins. They've like reprogrammed them. They're bad news. They tried to make me one of them, but I'm not one of them. You gotta believe me, or whether you believe me or not, that's the truth. But then when Crosshair runs into him, like you said, they recognize each other, and he's like, we got to get out of here. So maybe, I don't buy into this theory 100% yet, but maybe that's subconsciously Crosshair saying like, this guy's going to blow my cover. We got to get out of here. But I can't see this as much on a storytelling level, because why wouldn't they already activate him or something, or be trying to trigger Crosshair to return Omega like immediately? Instead, they're like, go and take him out. Wasn't he a target? No, he wasn't a target. Okay, so that's also part of it too, you know, that they weren't going to take him out. There's mystery there as well.
Yes, that's another part of this. They make it a point to say, you know, Omega was on this disc and you weren't. Why is that?
It's very odd. I think this is a diversion, though. This is meant to get people on a podcast, pulling out their red string and tying around. Yeah, you're right. Mission accomplished.
They did it. So going back to what I was saying before, that's one way that I think that this could end, with him like turning on the batch and then unturning on the batch, being a sleeper agent, but then like snapping out of it to sacrifice himself to save them all at some point. Choo-choo, speculation station. But also, we talked a lot last episode about Crosshair sacrifices, and now he's willing to make these sacrifices at the drop of a hat. He's willing to be the one to just ride off solo so that the others can get away. And that scares me. I'm scared of that. I don't like it. The new assassin, who I guess is the better one, I don't know. The better assassin is tracking them. Crosshair says, I'll create a diversion so you all can get away. And Omega says, I don't like that plan. And Crosshair says, too bad. Which, another great line. Such a good line. That's so good.
I mean, if they're going to write his character to bite it at the end of this season, they're already using up a lot of good dialogue right beforehand. Yeah. So, you know, like, I don't remember what Paz Vizsla says, but like, you know, this is the way is an easy out for any Mandalorian sort of thing.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah.
I like that, but I do think they're setting us up to be ready. They're kind of desensitizing us. And for the rest of the episode, I was worried that Crosshair was going to die. I really thought we were losing Crosshair. They're falling down the waterfall and he's got the upper hand, but then he's got the lower hand. Is that the right turn of phrase there? And then like the clone assassin is drowning him, you know? So I really thought that this was going to be Crosshair's ultimate sacrifice. And I also really thought like, this is too soon. I haven't seen him fully become this redeemed, you know, we need the helmet taken off and throw the Emperor down the shaft and all that kind of thing. And that's, again, I'm comparing it to Vader's redemption, and that's how Vader's redemption ended. And Ventress's, until we see her in a few episodes from now, her redemption ended in her death. I guess non-canonically anymore. But that's a theme in Star Wars. Like redemption is a theme, but then also once you are redeemed, your clock's ticking.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's really interesting there. Man, I'm sad. But maybe this might be a newer Star Wars trope, the subverting expectations sort of thing.
Thanks, Ryan.
Maybe we should do some more thinking about that aspect of writing in Star Wars, like getting all of these, is this going to be the moment where Crosshair bites it? You think we're maybe desensitizing towards that? They're sort of foreshadowing, but maybe at the end, that's not the case at all. Like that would be the ultimate diversion that, actually he makes it out alive. But we thought right up until the very end that was not going to be the case, which would be satisfying. Or if it's the ultimate sacrifice, that parallels perfectly well. But who knows? Like that's kind of the brilliance of it. Like again, like we're wondering, you can follow the foreshadowing, you can have your own headcanon, and that's kind of the beauty of enjoying what they're throwing at us and the beauty of tuning into a show like Krypton to Alderaan every week and hitting subscribe to help them get to 500.
Hell yeah. Do it. Yeah, you're right. Maybe we will subvert expectations here. Maybe Crosshair will be the one to make the ultimate sacrifice. Maybe Crosshair and Omega will be the only ones to survive. Man, either way, it's going to be sad. And I think in conclusion, the greatest achievement that this show has made is making me the idea of Crosshair making that sacrifice for his brothers and for Omega is sad to me. We're 7 episodes in, still blowing my mind that they're making me feel this way about this character.
And still lots of runway left in this season. This pairing of episodes was kind of surprising. Filler episode, side quest, whatever you want to define it as, but still kind of a surprise.
Expectations.
Right, exactly, right? So I think we're hitting the nail on the head here, and we've still got, twice as much runtime left. But of course, we would love to hear from you listeners. Where do you think this Crosshair redemption is going? Where do you think Rex's rebellion is going? Leave your comments if you're here on YouTube. And of course, remember to subscribe. We're trying to hit that 500 mark. Please be a part of the club here with us. And of course, you can hit us up wherever you like to social media as well. Make sure to tune in next week for our further coverage on the Bad Batch. Thank you for listening to the show today. I've been Royce.
I've been Fireball.
And we've been
Krypton to
Alderaan.
Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan.
Why would you take the assassin to your secret base? Anyway, bye everyone.